and speak so eloquently on all topics. Representative Larson.
Well, thank you very much, Kevin, and it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to serve as Congressman from the 1st Congressional District. I think in my time in the United States Congress, I've seen an awful lot transpire. We currently, as I speak, are conducting wars on 3 fronts. But wasn't it great what pride we took as our Navy SEALs captured Osama bin Laden? And justice was served.
Yeah.
Can you hear me back there? Okay, that's better. So I'm happy that we're able to do this a forum. We do several forums. I just want to put in a plug for a forum that we're doing at the University of Hartford. When is that, Chris?
Tuesday, June 7th at 5 p.m.
Tuesday, June 7th at 5 p.m. We're doing it with the Concord Coalition. We're doing it to have citizens go through the exercise that members of Congress would have to go through, and looking at all the budgetary concerns and matters that we're faced with. And as you all are probably aware, the Concord Coalition is committed to dealing with the deficit. How many of you out here in the audience believe that we have a problem with the national debt, the deficit? Yeah, that's your show of hands. Okay. So it's pretty clear, right, that we've got a problem with the national debt, and that we have to address this issue. In fact, there's broad bipartisan agreement that this is what we have to do. We have to make sure that we do this to put our house in order and to make sure that we are able to continue to grow this economy and compete around the globe. So I think it's instructive first to say, well, okay, we currently have a $14 trillion deficit. How did we get there? So you may recall, we can go back to President Carter and start looking at his administration, then through Ronald Reagan, George Bush, the elder, I like to say, then President Clinton, who Congress took some pretty strong steps to grapple with the budget, and ultimately left office with a $5 trillion surplus. That surplus was inherited by George Bush. Of course, we had an unprecedented attack on the country in September the 11th. And of course, we pursued Osama bin Laden into Afghanistan, and as you all know, recently captured him and put him to death. But in the process, we also invaded Iraq, kept the front open in Afghanistan, and as Kevin pointed out, with the Medicare Part D, did not pay for these wars. Not paying for the war is unprecedented in American history. A lot of you around this room will remember during the Second World War and ensuing Korea and Vietnam that the nation always paid for any war that it was involved in. And whether it was through bonds or whether it was going out and collecting and saving and conserving, when the nation was at war, it recognized the great commitment it had to its troops, its national security, and it paid for it. Nobel Prize laureate Joseph Stiglitz says that the war in Iraq alone will cost more than $3 trillion, and it's unpaid for. So we had a war on 2 fronts that is unpaid for. Then we had, and Kevin's already pointed this out, a Medicare bill that ended up being a bonanza for the pharmaceutical and insurance companies. The idea was that it was going to save money because, this will sound familiar, they were going to go out to the private market and offer you more choice. Instead, the administrative costs were driving up the costs of average recipients of Medicare. And instead of lowering the cost, it in fact expanded the cost of Medicare, and it was unpaid for. To David Brooks's point, there are some in Congress. Listen, I don't know anybody who's really in favor of raising taxes. You never win a popularity contest with that. But how about this? How about if we were to go back to the Clinton-era taxes? Just going back to Clinton-era taxes, where we had 116 months of successive profits, and where everyone was doing pretty well. Mistakes were made in the Clinton presidency as well. Mistakes were made in the financial area of easing regulations that only broadened and expanded during the Bush administration. But both in the Clinton and Bush administration, those things expanded. So you got 2 wars, now potentially a third, unpaid for. A prescription drug benefit, unpaid for. And it was the thinking of the Bush administration that because we had this surplus that was scheduled to be paid down completely by 2009, that this was excess money, and instead of paying down the debt, we would give it back to the people by way of tax cuts. And of course, as you're all aware of, those tax cuts are skewed on both ends. The wealthier do pay more money in taxes. And when tax breaks come, they get enormous tax breaks as well. And so we went from the Clinton tax breaks to Bush's. But unfortunately, when you give a tax break, that means the revenue is not coming in to the government's coffers. And so Kevin is talking in one respect about the nation's wealthiest 1%. People like Warren Buffett, people like Bill Gates, thousands of these hedge fund guys and speculators on Wall Street who are making money for simply turning over algorithmic trades, many that are made millions in a minute, with unprecedented profit. I'm all in favor of people making money and people making profits. God bless them. We want everybody to be wealthy. But not at the expense of the social compact and the social contract with Americans' people. So we have wars, we have a prescription drug benefit that goes to big business that the elderly pay more for, and then we have these tax cuts. The ones to the middle class, welcomed. And if things had gone along according to the theory that if the nation's wealthiest 1% got a hefty tax cut, that those monies would trickle down and ultimately the economy would be better off because of that. But that just doesn't pan out. It doesn't work that way. And so what we saw instead is increased debt because that's less money coming in to the Treasury. Add to that the events of September of 2008, and if you haven't seen Too Big to Fail, seen on television The Inside Game, I commend it to you.